Excellency Excellency.
We wear cool suits, we wear shiny shoes, we're the Blackberry Boys. Oh yeah, we're the Blackberry Boys. We're special, we're clever, we're very, very clever. We're the Blackberry Boys. Oh yeah, we're the Blackberry Boys. We do chat and we do mail. We do all of the moves. We're the Blackberry Boys. Oh yeah, we're the Blackberry Boys. We're the Blackberry Boys. Oh yeah, we're the Blackberry Boys. We're the Blackberry Boys. Oh yeah, we're the Blackberry.
I think now I can start formally. His Excellency the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Shri Ashok Gehlot, Beena Kak, Minister of Culture, Tourism, Archives, Women and Child, and I think I missed at least one of her designations. Dr. Karan Singh, President, ICCR, His Excellency Timothy Roma, the American Ambassador here to India, Sheldon Pollock, our honored guest, H.S. Narula and Serena Narula, Manhad and Faith Singh, all our authors, members of our audience who've traveled from across many continents to be here, welcome to the DSC Jaipur Literature Festival, and thank you all for coming here. Each year the madness grips us roughly around this time. We get thousands of phone calls from people who wish to come here and find rooms in your city, and it's very difficult to find a room anymore because it's so packed. But why is it that this festival is important? In this time where our world has become more and more a difficult place to be in, where countries are ranged against each other, there are so many divergent views, it is essential that a platform like this is created for debate and for dialogue and for discussion of all kinds of points of view, so that each of us can share and understand the other person in whatever way is possible. For this, we'd really like to thank, on behalf of our directors, Namita Gokhale and William Dalrymple and all our colleagues at Teamwork, we'd like to thank all the many authors who've traveled across so many continents to come here. In spite of all the visa problems that we've had to encounter, we'd like to greet them and acknowledge their presence. Thank you for being here. To our audiences from Jaipur, from Bombay, from Calcutta, from Vancouver and Chicago and Seattle and South Africa, welcome to Jaipur, welcome to the sun. And finally, before I ask our distinguished visitors to light the lamp, I'd like to thank all our many sponsors who've made this possible. DSC, who stood by us for many, many years. They've been on the forefront of supporting culture in the United Kingdom before they decided to come here, set up shop and support this festival. Almost 6 years ago, I think HS first came and said, I think this is a festival that will grow, and I'm very happy to back it. So thank you very much, HS, Manhat, Serena, for your generosity of spirit and for being here. To the ICCR and the Department of Public Diplomacy, Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Culture, to the American Center, primarily, Tim, because of your support, thank you very much. To our sponsors, Merrill Lynch, The Economist, Vodafone, The Times of India, Coca-Cola, British Council Consulate, Kingfisher Airlines, the Jan Michalewski Foundation, JCB, Rio Tinto, the Department of Tourism here in Rajasthan, who've been extremely supportive. Thank you very much, Beena, for making this support possible. This is the first time, I think, in our history we've had an extremely welcoming government organization coming to us and saying, what can we do for you? We'd like to be your partners, and we're very grateful for your support and the support of the Chief Minister and the government. And finally, to Goldman Sachs and the Scottish government, thank you all very much for making this possible. May I please invite Chief Minister Shri Ashok Gehlot, Beena Kak, Dr. Karan Singh, Tim Romer, Faith, HS and Serena Narula to come up and light the inaugural lamp. Sir, Sheldon. William. This venue, this magnificent venue is the Diggi Palace. Ram Pratap and Jyotika Diggi have been our hosts for many years. They've created an incredible infrastructure that you will see. Thank you for making this the home of the DSC Jaipur Literature Festival. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the festival director, Namita Gokhale.
Hello.
Can I please request the photographers and the members of the press, and can I please request Sandy Singh to come here? We need you all to clear because nobody will be able to see anything. Thank you very much. You've got 20 photographs which I'm sure you can use in at least one newspaper.
जयपुर साहित्य उत्सव के इस बार के आयोजन में आप सबका हार्दिक स्वागत है। बचपन में बताया गया था सरस्वती के भंडार की बड़ी अनोखी बात, ज्यों बांटे त्यों त्यों बढ़े, बिन बांटे घट जात। इसी भावना से हम इस साहित्यिक तीर्थ का आज प्रारंभ करते हैं। साहित्य जीवन जीने की दृष्टि देता है। साहित्य में हमेशा परंपरा और विद्रोह दोनों साथ साथ चलते हैं। अगले 5 दिनों में हम भारतीय भाषाओं की बनती बिगड़ती परिभाषा पर काफी विचार करेंगे और दुनिया भर से आए नोबेल पुरस्कार, बुकर पुरस्कार इत्यादि से सम्मानित लेखकों की बात सुनेंगे तथा राजस्थान में उनका सम्मान करेंगे। So, a very heartfelt welcome to all the great and wonderful writers from around the world and across India who are honoring the DSC Jaipur Literature Festival by coming here today. The extraordinary success of this festival has perhaps something to do with the changing way South Asians are viewing themselves. It is as though the meridian of literary culture has somehow relocated to our own place, our own time, and our own latitude. India exists in a joyous state of translation. With 22 national languages and 122 regional languages, a joyous pluralism and diversity is an essential part of the literary culture which our festival celebrates. It has also to do with the creation of a democratic intellectual arena which, like the internet, has the capacity to accommodate simultaneous and sometimes conflicting worlds. And of course, it has to do with good writing and dialogue, as well as the enthusiasm and engagement of our audiences. So every year in January, the world visits Jaipur and Jaipur visits the world. And here we try in our different ways to break across boundaries, to resist stereotypes, and to listen in to literary voices from different languages and cultures. So my deepest, most heartfelt thanks to all the readers and writers who are gathered here, and to all the other committed people who have worked tirelessly through the year to make this morning possible. Thank you.
We'd like to thank the Honorable Chief Minister for coming here. There's been a crisis in a city in the state which he's going. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. You will come back and join us for many of the sessions. Thank you very much. Can I please... can I please welcome on stage the person who actually started the Jaipur Heritage Festival and this movement almost 10 years ago. Faith Singh and John Singh set up Anokhi and then got bored having made that a huge success and decided they wanted to do something for the city. Please welcome Faith Singh.
I'll start by presenting myself in context and just explaining that I married and settled in Jaipur 43 years ago. So though I look Gauri and alag se or bahar se, main idhar ki hu. You know, after so many years, I really belong here. It's been my good fortune to work professionally in Rajasthan's traditional sector with its traditional craftspeople and artists. And that experience of intense engagement provided a window for me into the wealth, enormous wealth of traditional knowledge, skills and arts that India still possesses and that stand very threatened by our very rapid changes. So 10 years ago, citizens, a group of citizens in Jaipur came together to start an annual city festival. Our intention was to contribute to the growth of our nation, our region and our city by creating this platform that we're seeing today, but that is also much, much wider that you can't see here. And that platform was conceived to have space for everyone, to be a showcase for some of our incredible legacy and heritage, and a place in which we could collaborate, interact, make new creations, and celebrate who we are and understand who we are, to create a positive mechanism and contribute as citizens to our growing democracy and our very young democracy that is so threatened by all the world coming in and wanting to sell us and sell us and sell us and sell things to us. And so to make a place for the subtle and intangible and wonderful things that have sustained India for so many years. So out of this endeavor, the Literature Festival was born. The Jodhpur Music Festival that now takes place in October every year was born. And all sorts of other things have started to happen over the 10 years. And how did it all happen? I just want to put here in the public space the fact that we have stayed with our objective over a period of time. They say Rome wasn't built in a day. You know, nothing happens overnight. And we've stayed in spite of the ups and downs. And it happened because along the way, key individuals from every sphere of life, artists, creative professionals, lovers of India's traditional peoples, administrators, politicians, philanthropists, sponsors, each with their own sphere of influence, have taken decisions, given time, and provided resources to make it happen. There are too many people to thank, but on this great occasion today, having come this far, and in the presence of so many really eminent people who I feel very honored to stand before, in a context where Jaipur and Rajasthan have now really got a world profile for their excellence in creative and cultural activities. I would like to acknowledge specifically the contribution of our Chief Minister, Mr. Gehlot, who was with us when we started in 2001-2002, our Minister for Tourism, who's now left, Beena Kark, who was also with us at that time, Mr. Emmett, Mr. Sunil Arora, Mr. Sandhu, Mr. Parshottam Agarwal, and Mr. Matthew, and I'm happy to say Shri Pavan Varma from the central government, all in administrative capacities have enabled this thing to go forward. The professionals, Sanjoy, God bless him, Divya, Pramod KG and Di Robson, and our anthropologists and cultural interlocutors. Today we're talking a lot about interlocutors, and I thought that was a good word. People who are able to bridge the modern world, the international world, and the traditional world. People like Vinodji, Ishwarji, Prakash, Vijay Varma, Dr. Kalanath Shastri, our own Sanskrit scholar, and our creative and powerful community of people like Namita, William, Shubham Udkal, and all our incredible artists, authors, poets, and people in Rajasthan and all over India, our passionate volunteers and field workers, and my colleagues in Jaipur Virasat Foundation and the new Jaipur Citizens Forum, which is taking over the management and front end of this work. I conclude with a thought from Kabir, and I'm going to try and say it in Hindi, and I know my Hindi is pretty hopeless for somebody as eminent as Kabir. Bavan aksha lok tre, inme kuchu nahi. ए अक्षर खिर जाएंगे, ओ अक्षर इनमें नहीं. Basically, Kabir is saying that those symbols that are the letters of the alphabet, the 52 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, through them one can express the entire creation, but they all dissolve and disappear. Teen log, they all dissolve and disappear. That one letter, or ek akshar, that gives life to the creation, is not in those 52 letters. And that one letter is something else, and that really is what we seek to honor through our efforts in this festival and all the work that we're doing in this sphere. I thank you all very much. I thank all my friends and all my colleagues, and I hope you have a wonderful festival.
May the madness stay with Faith, and may she give birth to many more fantastic ideas. Thank you, Faith. They build roads connecting cities. They support festivals linking people to one another. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Manad Narula, Director, DSC Literature Festival. They've also instituted this year the DSC Literature Festival Prize for South Asian Writing for $50,000, which will be announced tomorrow at 6 p.m. here at the main lawn. Manad.
Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome to the DSC Jaipur Literature Festival. It's the 6th or 5th year of our support, and we're very happy to be here again. I'm always asked how it is that DSC, an infrastructure firm, came to support a literature festival. My marketing department would love for me to tell you all about how we don't just build roads and power plants, but we also build social infrastructure through our support of this festival and other literary initiatives. I think, though, there's a much simpler reason for all of this. One of my favorite songwriters, Stephen Still, said, there are 3 things men can do with women: love them, suffer for them, or turn them into literature. I'm sure my father loves my mother. He certainly has suffered for her, and he can't write, so he decided instead to support her love of literature by sponsoring this festival. I'm really looking forward to the variety of events on offer and meeting with all the wonderful authors that are here. I hope you all enjoy yourselves, and as Sanjoy mentioned, I hope you all come to find out the winner of the first DSC Prize for South Asian Literature on Saturday. Thank you and have fun.
Thank you, Manu. Ladies and gentlemen, William Dalrymple, Director, Jaipur DSC Jaipur Literature Festival.
There was a panel on TV yesterday, on NDTV, about anxieties about literature. And there were school teachers and parents on, saying that they were worried that their kids spent all their days on Facebook and the internet or gaming, rather than reading Amachitrakatha or Enid Blyton like they had done in the mobile libraries which used to go around the colonies in South Delhi in the old days. Certainly there are anxieties about the future for literature, the future of the book, whether it'll go entirely online, whether it'll disappear down a Kindle, whether everyone will just spend the rest of their lives gaming. But I think that the astonishing growth and success of this festival shows at the very least that there is a counter-movement. All over the world, literature festivals are springing up. And in an extraordinary short period of time, we have found ourselves the directors of the largest literary festival in the eastern half of the globe and the largest free festival of literature in the world. We try and create a kind of intellectual nuclear fusion here. We bring the greatest literary minds in the world from 23 countries, and we bring them together with the greatest literary minds in India. Light the touch paper, stand back and watch the explosion. The other thing, though, that I think keeps us going is that we are not too serious. This is a lot of fun, this festival. In the evening, the writers have to shut up, and everything gives way to music and dancing. One crit last year described the way our authors are treated as being like Salman Khan taking his shirt off at a convention of auto rickshaw drivers. We're not perfect. Each year, great writers who maybe should be on these panels don't get onto them because we don't know about them or whatever other reason. There are many things that we fail to do. But I think gradually we're getting there. The balance of international and Indian writers, the balance of different languages in this country, the balance of written and oral literature, popular and high, non-fiction, fiction, are all things that we try and balance. If you look at the programs, which I understand are about to arrive in half an hour, you will find that every moment of this festival, at any given moment, that there is an item in English, an item in another Indian language, something about fiction, something about non-fiction, something that is international in focus, and something which is local or regional or national. And trying to figure all these sessions together so that at any given moment in one of our 4 venues, there's something interesting for everyone going on. It's like trying to manage 4 Rubik cubes simultaneously, and it's been a hell of a thing. Many people have contributed to this. It's been the work of thousands of people working together. A measure of how stressful it's been, our poor PR Imtiaz had a stroke this week, and we wish him well in hospital. But we are here, and I think this magnificent festival speaks for itself. Thank you very much.
Can I ask Namita to come and introduce Dr. Karan Singh? Just 4 bits of housekeeping while Namita comes up. One is, this is a beautiful venue in a lovely city. Please let's help keep it clean. If you see litter around you, there are enough dustbins. Please pick them up and put them there, and don't litter yourself. This is the main stage, which is the Vodafone front lawn. The music stage is on the right, which is the Coca-Cola and Times of India music stage. The registration desks, and everybody please do register. For delegates and authors, the registration desk is near the palace, near the Haveli. The other registration desks are around the corridor. And on the right of that is the Baithak venue, which is the Kingfisher Baithak venue. And then past that on the other side is the Merrill Lynch Mughal tent and the bookshop and the author signing areas. So that's just for information for you all. Sessions start on the hour, every hour. And before Namita starts, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank 2 people without whom many of our authors wouldn't have found their way here. Navdeep Suri and Mr. Anand Krishnan from the Ministry of External Affairs, who've had to sit in the Home Office in Delhi trying to wrest out of them every visa clearance, and they will tell you what a nightmare it is at some point of time, forget me, one government department to the other. But thank you very much, Ministry of External Affairs, Navdeep and Mr. Krishna.
Well, literature is about no visa zones. And I request Dr. Karan Singh to get up because I am going to give the shortest introduction possible. Dr. Karan Singh needs no introduction at all. He is India's leading thinker and intellectual. He has been a politician, he is a statesman, he is the head of the Indian Council of Cultural Relations, and his new book, A Treasury of Indian Wisdom, has only just been released from Penguin. So he is here today as an author, a thinker, a buddhijeev, and an inspiration for many, many of us. Thank you.
उपस्थित माननीय साहित्यकार बंधु, साहित्य प्रेमी भाई और बहनों, मुझे जयपुर में आकर इस विश्व विख्यात सम्मेलन में शामिल होकर बड़ी प्रसन्नता हो रही है। उसके दो कारण हैं। एक तो हमारा पारंपरिक संबंध जयपुर से रहा है। 650 वर्ष पहले हमारे पूर्वज यही नारायणा से उत्तर की ओर गए थे, इसलिए हमारी जड़ें बड़ी गंभीर हैं, यहाँ बड़ी गूढ़ हैं। दूसरा, साहित्यकारों के बीच में रहकर बड़ी प्रसन्नता होती, क्योंकि हम राजनीतिज्ञों के बीच में रहते हैं ज़्यादातर, लेकिन साहित्यकारों का अपना ही आनंद होता है। मैं स्वयं 50 वर्ष से लिख रहा हूं। मेरी पहली किताब 1960 में छपी थी, तो 50 वर्ष से लिख रहे हैं। साहित्य के साथ हमारा संबंध रहा है। और अगर आप लोग जम्मू जाएं तो वहां अमर महल लाइब्रेरी में 25,000 किताबें आप पाएंगी जो हमने अपने जीवन काल में खरीदी होंगी। हमने घोड़े नहीं खरीदे, हमने गाड़ियां नहीं खरीदी, हमने बंदूकें नहीं खरीदी, हमने किताबें खरीदी, क्योंकि बचपन से किताबों के साथ हमारा बहुत प्रेम रहा है। और इसलिए ये साहित्य कार्य सम्मेलन में आकर बहुत अधिक हमें प्रसन्नता होती है। भारतवर्ष की एक अद्वितीय सांस्कृतिक पृष्ठभूमि है। 5000 वर्ष से वेदों से लेके और मेरी मातृभाषा डोगरी तक अनेक भाषाओं में रचनात्मक साहित्य रचा जाता है। कोई ऐसा देश विश्व में नहीं होगा जिसमें 25 भाषाओं में रचनात्मक कार्य होता हो। उपन्यास, लेख, कविता संग्रह, आलोचना, 25 भाषाओं में। आप सारा यूरोप इकट्ठा ले लीजिए तब भी 25 भाषाएं पूरी नहीं होती। तो हमारे देश में इतनी साहित्यिक क्षमता है, इतनी साहित्यिक स्फूर्ति है कि अनेक भाषाओं में हम साहित्य प्रस्तुत करते हैं। और मैं चाहूंगा कि अधिक से अधिक हमारी जो प्रांतीय भाषाएं हैं उनकी भी अभिव्यक्ति इस सम्मेलन में होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि भाषा बड़ी छोटी इससे नहीं होती है कि कितने लोग उसे बोलते हैं। जिसकी मातृभाषा होती है उसके लिए वही सबसे बड़ी भाषा होती है। इसलिए जब हम इसको विश्व विख्यात बना रहे हैं उस समय मैं चाहूंगा कि प्रांतीय भाषाओं को भी महत्व अधिक दिया जाए। दो बातें कहना चाहता हूं इस अवसर पर। एक तो अनुवादकों की बड़ी आवश्यकता है। अनुवाद हमारे देश में पर्याप्त नहीं। मुझे अब याद आता है जो हमने बचपन में वॉर एंड पीस पढ़ा, थ्री मस्केटियर्स पढ़ा, हमने मैजिक माउंटेन पढ़ा। कई वर्षों के बाद हमें ये ज्ञात हुआ कि ये अनुवाद है। कोई रूसी से, कोई फ्रांसीसी से, कोई जर्मन से। इतने अच्छे अनुवाद थे कि हमें दिमाग में भी नहीं आया कि ये अनुवाद होते हैं। तो इसी तरीके से अनुवादकों की ओर विशेष ध्यान देना चाहिए, क्योंकि हमारा साहित्य इतना बहुरंगी है और बहुमुखी है कि जब तक अनुवाद नहीं होंगे तब तक हमें पता नहीं चलेगा कि तेलुगु में क्या लिखा जा रहा है, कि तमिल में क्या लिखा जा रहा है, कि कश्मीरी में क्या लिखा जा रहा है। इसलिए मेरी प्रार्थना है कि ये जो आपका सम्मेलन होता है इसमें आप अनुवाद और अनुवादकों के लिए विशेष स्थान रखा करें, उनकी ओर ध्यान दिया करें। दूसरी बात कहना चाहता हूं कि कविता पाठ की बड़ी आवश्यकता है। गद्य और पद्य के बीच में बड़ा अंतर है। गद्य पढ़ने के लिए है और पद्य सुनने के लिए है। तो अगर आप गद्य पढ़े तो ठीक है, लेकिन मुझे याद है जब वेस्टलैंड मैंने पहले पढ़ा था तो कोई मुझे उसका सर पैर पता नहीं चला। लेकिन जब रॉबर्ट स्पेट की हमने रिकॉर्डिंग सुनी वेस्टलैंड की, तो एकदम वो महान कविता जो है हमारे सामने खड़ी हो गई। इसी प्रकार से होना चाहिए ऐसे सम्मेलन में। फैज अहमद फैज की शताब्दी है, गुलजार जी वो हमारे घर पधारे थे। तुम आए हो न शबे इंतजार गुजरी है, तलाश में है सहर बार बार गुजरी है, जनों में जितनी भी गुजरी बकार गुजरी है, अगरचे दिल पे खराबी हजार गुजरी है। हुई है हजरत नासे से गुफ्तगू जिस शब, वो शब जरूर सरे कुए यार गुजरी है, और वो बात सारे फसाने में जिसका जिक्र न था, वो बात उनको बहुत नागवार गुजरी है। देखिए कैसी कविताएं हैं। फिजा के हाथों गुलों पर न जाने क्या गुजरी, चमन से आज सबा बेकरार गुजरी है, और न उनसे मिले न उनसे न गुल खिले हैं, न उनसे मिले न मैं पी है, अजीब रंग में अब के बहार गुजरी। तो किसी भी कविता को जब तक आप पढ़ेंगे नहीं, तुलसीदास जी को भी आप पढ़ेंगे ऐसे मजा नहीं आएगा जब तक सुनेंगे नहीं। रावणु रथी बिरथ रघुवीरा, देखी विभीषण भयु अधीरा, अधिक प्रीत मन भा संदेहा, बंदी चरण कह सहत स्नेहा, नाथ न रथ नहीं तन पद त्राणा, किस विध जितबु वीर बलवाना। जब युद्ध होने लगा है अंतिम रावण और राम के बीच में, तो विभीषण इस तरफ आ गए हैं, बहुत प्रेम करते हैं श्री राम से, तो हाथ जोड़ के कहते अधिक प्रीत मन भाई। ये नहीं कि उनको शक था, लेकिन अधिक प्रीत था राम के साथ। तो कहते कि साहब न तो आपके पास रथ है, ना तो आपके पांव पे जूता है, आप कैसे लड़ोगे इसके विरुद्ध। उससे फिर धर्म रथ की जो व्याख्या श्री राम ने की, सुनो सखा कह कृपा निधाना, जो जय होई सो शंतनु आना, सौरज धीरज जही रथ चाका, सत्य धीर दृढ़ पताका, बल विवेक दम परहित घोरे, क्षमा कृपा समता रजु जोरे, ईस भजनु सारथी सुजाना, बिरति करम संतोष सुभाना, दान परसु बुद्धि शक्ति प्रचंडा, वर विज्ञान कठिन को दंडा, अजर अचल मन त्रोण समाना, समझम नियम सिली मुकडाना, कवच अभेद विप्र गुरु पूजा, यही सम विजय उपाय न दूजा, सखा धर्म में असरथ जाके, जित न कहूं न कितपुर जाके। यानी धर्मरथ की व्याख्या जो है, ये मैं समझता हूं कि विश्व साहित्य में जैसे शेक्सपियर बहुत सारे टू बी और नॉट टू बी है, वैसे विश्व साहित्य में ये धर्म रथ की जो व्याख्या श्री राम ने की, तुलसीदास ने, ये होनी चाहिए। और फिर देववाणी संस्कृत का तो क्या कहें। मैं तो हिमालय का पुत्र हूं। कालिदास ने कुमार संभव के प्रथम श्लोक में हिमालय का वर्णन किया है। अस्तुत्तर श्याम दिशि देवतात्मा, हिमालयो नाम नगाधिराज, पूर्वः परोतो यनिधि वगाय, स्थितः पृथिव्याय वमानदंड। और इसकी जो लहरें चलती हैं महालक्ष्मी की के ध्यान में, या सा पद्मासनस्था विपुल कटितटी पद्म पत्रायताक्षी, गंभीरावर्तनाभि सन भरणमिता शुभ्र वस्त्रोत्तरीया, लक्ष्मी दिव्य ही गजेंद्र ही मणिगण खचित ही स्नापिता हे मुकुंबे, नित्यम सा पद्महस्ता तब वसतु गृहे सर्व मांगल्य युक्त। जैसे समुद्र की लहरें चलती। तो मेरी विनम्र प्रार्थना है कि गद्य अपने स्थान पे है, लेकिन पद्य जो है उसकी गरिमा अलग होती है, और श्रवण की जो क्षमता है वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण होती है। फ्रेंड्स, there is no greater pleasure for me than to be among fellow literateurs. I have been writing for 50 years. My first book was published in 1960, and recently A Treasury of Indian Wisdom, an anthology from the Vedas down to Osho, 5,000 years in 200 pages has been released. So I adore writing, I adore books, and all my life I haven't bought cars, I haven't bought jewelry. What I have done is to buy books. And if any of you go to Jammu, you will see in my Amar Mahal library 25,000 books that in the course of my life I seem to have collected. India has a unique literary heritage, creative writing in 25 languages. Can you show me any other single country which has creative writing in more than 1 or 2 languages? 25 languages, the whole of Europe, from Poland to Portugal, and from Norway to Greece, will not have 25 languages. And yet we produce creative literature, poetry, novels, plays, criticism in 25 languages, and continue to do so down to the present day, from Devavani Sanskrit all the way down to my mother tongue Dogri, which is the latest addition to the 8th schedule of the Constitution. And therefore it is my suggestion that these regional languages should also be showcased in this festival, because this is a national and international festival. And if we don't showcase our own languages, then it does not fully reflect the diversity and glory of Indian culture. I have 2 more points to make briefly. I was given only 10 minutes by whoever it was who wrote me a rude letter to say, you've got 10 minutes to speak. So I wrote back, I said, oh, I'm abashed, I'm aghast at 10 minutes, could I have 15? So the 2 points more. One is the importance of good translators. You see, translations are tremendously important. I now realize that when we were growing up, we read War and Peace. We read The Magic Mountain. We read The Three Musketeers. It is only much later that we realized that these were translations from the German, from the Russian, from the French. So perfect were the translations, it never even crossed our mind that these were translations. Now that is the sort of translation that we need in this country, from various regional languages, from Hindi, from English. Because how do I know what creative work is going on in Andhra Pradesh unless the Telugu books are translated? So therefore, may I suggest that when this festival meets, a special attention is paid to translations. Maybe a special session, maybe a special award or whatever, but the importance of translations is highlighted. And the second point that I made was the importance of poetry recitation. You may have gathered that from my Hindi speech. Prose is written to be read. Poetry is written to be heard. There is a qualitative difference between poetry and prose, which is very often forgotten. So whereas prose can be there, unless you hear poetry, the meaning will not come forth fully. And therefore it is, I remember when I first read The Wasteland, I couldn't make head or tail of it. It didn't make any sense to me. It was only when I heard, I think it was Robert Spate's great reading of The Wasteland and the Four Quartets, that suddenly this great poem, probably the greatest English poem of its century, came alive. So similarly, everybody has their favorite poets. Mine are Yeats and Frost and Eliot and Tennyson. To each his own. I'm not going to start quoting from them, otherwise I'll go on all day. But what I'm saying is that poetry has to be recited. And so, while I wish all the writers and lovers of literature gathered here in this beautiful and historic city of Jaipur, from where my ancestors migrated north 650 years ago, I wish you all, the organizers, the participants, my very best for the movement into the global society. We live in an age of great turmoil and transition, when the old is disappearing and the new is struggling to be born, and we find ourselves precariously poised between a disappearing past and an indeterminate future. At a time like this, there is a great churning of consciousness, and with all its dangers, that churning gives us a new impetus for creative literature. So may the Shabda Brahma, the divine word, be with you. May it guide your consciousness as we hurtle willy-nilly into the future astride the irreversible arrow of time. And I'm going to close by reciting a poem by Sri Aurobindo in English. The great yogi, the great savant, and the poem is called Who. In the blue of the sky and the green of the forests, whose is the hand that has painted the globe? When the winds were asleep in the womb of the ether, who was it roused them and bade them to blow? He is lost in the heart, in the cavern of nature. He is found in the brain where he fills up the thought. In the pattern and bloom of the flowers he is woven. In the luminous net of the stars he is caught. In the strength of a man, in the beauty of woman. In the laugh of a boy, in the blush of a girl. The hand that sent Jupiter spinning through heaven spends all its cunning to fashion a curl. These are his works and his ways and his shadows. But where is he then? By what name is he known? Is he Brahma or Vishnu? A man or a woman? Bodied or bodiless? Twin or alone? We have love for a boy who is dark and resplendent. A woman is lord of us, naked and fierce. We have seen him amuse on the snows of the mountain. We have watched him at work in the heart of the spheres. We will tell the whole world of his ways and his cunning. He has rapture of torture and passion and pain. He delights in our sorrow and drives us to weeping, then lures with his joy and his beauty again. All music is only the sound of his laughter. All beauty, the smile of his passionate bliss. Our lives are his heartbeats. Our rapture, the bridal of Radha and Krishna. Our love is their kiss. He is strength that is loud in the blare of the trumpets. And he rides in the car and he strikes in the spears. He slays without stint and is full of compassion. He works for the world in its ultimate years. In the sweep of the worlds, in the surge of the ages, ineffable, mighty, majestic and pure, beyond the last pinnacle seized by the thinker, he is throned in his seats that forever endure. The master of man and his infinite lover, he is close to our hearts, had we vision to see. We are blind with our pride and the pomp of our passions. We are bound in our thoughts when we hold ourselves free. It is he in the sun who is ageless and deathless. And into the midnight his shadow is thrown. When darkness was blind and engulfed within darkness, he was seated within it, immense and alone.
Thank you for that delightful and inspiring talk, and I do want to reassure Dr. Karan Singh that there are 12 regional languages and many translations represented here in the festival this year. There's Urdu, Bangla, Tamil, Odia, Assamia, and so many others. And also our keynote speaker for the opening session today is a person who has made the process of translation much more intimate, critical and valuable for centuries to come. Dr. Sheldon Pollock, here, he is the Professor of Sanskrit Studies in Columbia University and the General Editor of the Murthy Classical Library in India. Two of the translations of the Murthy Library, one of the Tulsi Ramayana and the other of the mystic poet Bulle Shah, will be showcased in sessions at the festival. Dr. Sheldon Pollock was here earlier in Jaipur in 2009, and to our delight his session on Sanskrit was overflowing with young people who are so much the part of the spirit of Jaipur. So let us welcome Dr. Sheldon Pollock. It's an honor and privilege to have you here.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I thank the honored guests and Namita and Will for the invitation. When I was told who the previous speakers were who've given this keynote address, Nayantara Sagal, UR Nantamurthy, Girish Karnad, people like that, I said to myself, what exactly am I doing here? I was a little bit concerned. The fact is that India has been filled with great writers, and scholars have often been in the presence of great writers, and they've learned to justify their existence in various ways. Here's how one Sanskrit poet put it: Kavi karoti kavyani Swadam janati panditaha sundarya api lavanyam patir janati no pita. The poet writes the poems, but the scholar really understands them. Who appreciates the beauty of a woman? Her father or her lover? I have to say that I'm particularly honored to follow in the footsteps of Girish and Anantamurthy. These are very dear old friends of mine, great writers of, we were speaking about the Deshavashas, great writers of Kannada, people who over the years filled me with a kind of passion for Kannada. If you scratch a Bengali, you'll find a philosopher. If you scratch a Kannadiga, you will find a poet. And these poets, Anantamurthy, Girish Karnad, and others who are no longer with us, A.K. Ramanujan, D.R. Nagaraj, the great social critic and lover of literature, transmitted a kind of infectious enthusiasm for Kannada to me. And I had the great opportunity years ago to study Halagannada in Mysore. And I learned a couple of things that I want to share with you about not just Kannada or old Kannada, but about the larger world of Indian literature that I came to understand through studying this particular language. The first thing I came to understand was that a festival like the Jaipur Literary Festival is actually a very old institution in India. I'd like you to just come with me 7 centuries on a little thought experiment 7 centuries ago to a little place called Kalyana in North Karnataka at the end of the 12th century. There was a literary festival all the time. And this is a literary festival that was absolutely extraordinary in its representativeness of the, as Dr. Karan Singh said, of the multiplicity of Indian literary creativity. In Kalyana, in the end of the 12th century, at that literary festival, you would have heard Sanskrit and Prakrit and Apabhrangsha. You would have heard Gujarati. You would have heard Kannada. You would have heard Madhya Deshiya, a form of Hindi. You would have heard Bangla, Oriya. It was an extraordinary array of amazing poetry on offer in a place like Kalyana at the end of the 12th century. And the striking thing about Kalyana at the end of the 12th century is that it was not an exception. India has been filled with literary festivals for centuries. In fact, think back until the court of Sawai Jai Singh II, right here in Jaipur, the early 18th century. You would have found a goshti filled with poets in Sanskrit, Prakrit, Braj Bhasha, Persian. Another example of this kind of intense desire to cultivate expressive language. And as Dr. Karan Singh said, this is really quite unusual. India represents really the most extraordinary, continuous, multilingual literary culture in world history. And there's really no end to the ways I could praise this. But I want to talk about the second thing I learned studying Halagannada. And I have to preface this by a very famous verse we find in the Valmiki Ramayana. Many of you will know it. Satatam Surabha Purusha Rajan Satatam Priyavadina Apriyasya Chapattasya Vakta Shrota Chadurlabha. It's very easy to find people who will say what you want to hear. But to find someone who will say something true but inconvenient, and to find someone who will listen to that is very difficult. Durlabha. And the thing I want to talk about that is somewhat apriya is the threat to the literary languages of South Asia today, particularly the classical literary languages. When I was studying Old Kannada in Mysore, I would visit the institutes in Mysore and Bangalore. There were an absolute disarray. And I asked my teacher, where are the other students studying Halagannada? And I realized there were no other students studying Halagana, that my teacher, T. Venkatachala Shastri, had no successors. And over the years, in the 35 or 40 years I've been coming to India, I have seen that the situation in Old Kannada is the same in Assamese, classical Assamese. It's the same in Bangla. It's the same in Gujarati, Marathi, Oriya, and all the way down the long alphabet list of Indian classical languages. In fact, I've become increasingly convinced that India is on the verge of a potentially cataclysmic cultural ecocide, where the capacity to read and understand the literary languages of the past may disappear. And most of the writers in this audience will understand when I talk about the fragility of the future. Poets often are concerned about what will happen to them after they're gone and who will read their works. This is an old trope, not just in Indian literary studies. But we're talking now not just about the future of a particular writer, we're talking about the future of a tradition, or indeed a tradition of traditions. And to repeat, I think it's now entirely legitimate to ask the question, although disturbing and dismaying to ask the question, if within 2 generations there will be anyone in India who will have the capacity to read and understand the works of Indian literature produced before 1800. I have a feeling that that number is slowly approaching a statistical 0, to be quite honest with you. Now, what is the right response to this current, the sort of silent spring, if you will, of Indian literature? Well, it's a good question. If you read the papers, just the other day I saw that there was a group of scholars that approached the Indian government to try to get Malayalam declared a classical language. This all started in 2004 with Tamil requesting the first time, I think, in recorded history that the state declared a language classical, and then Kannada and Telugu sought classical status. This is moving around the deck chairs on the Titanic. This mania for classical status is all taking place within the context of completely ignoring the fact that there's nobody reading these classical languages. Just consider the fact that in Delhi today, there is no one who is teaching classical Hindi literature, either of the 2 great universities. It would be like going to Paris and find that there's nobody teaching. This is an exact historical parallel. That there is no one teaching Corneille, Racine, or Molière in Paris. You cannot buy in Delhi the collected works of Keshav Das. That's the situation we're now confronting. And this is true, as I say, across the board, from Assamese to Marathi to Newari to Persian, and so on. I think that in an audience like this, I don't need to make the argument that it is probably not a good idea to let the past just pass away. There are lots of good reasons for cultivating the classical past. The disciplined pedagogy of learning a classical language, the care for the past, both the positive care for a past that's worth preserving and the critical care necessary for overcoming traditions of oppression, the kinds of equipment for living, the tools for living that are available to us in radically different times and places, the radically different visions of what it means to be a human being that are available in the pre-colonial South Asia past, and of course the availability of a kind of beauty which is no longer of a kind of beauty which, as Marx put it in a very famous and mysterious way, still has the power to affect us. All of this is available in the classical South Asian past. And I should say, just to take a moment, when I talk about the classical past, that my vision of the classical is directly opposite to the sort of view of Sainte-Beuve and T.S. Eliot and anyone else who's tried to describe the classic as the sort of the universal, as sort of a smug satisfaction in finding yourself in the past. For me, the classical and the adventure of classical Indian literature is to confront radically different ways of being human. Within 3,000 years of human consciousness that is sedimented in classical Indian literature are not just possible tools for living, but possible different ways of being a human being. Pedagogy, care for the past, equipment for living, the possibility of a new type of beauty. This is what we're on the, I think this is where we're on the brink of losing if we lose our capacity to access the classical past. Now again, I say, what are the possible solutions? I don't have time to talk at great length. I noticed the other day that the government of Tamil Nadu has instituted a new prize. I have to give you the prize's name, the Kalagnar M. Karunanidhi Prize for Classical Tamil. I did not know he was called Kalagnar, but that's okay. That may be one way of proceeding, new prizes. I mean, I've often thought when India sees a serious problem, it can do something serious about it. The IITs, the IISs, the IIMs that address serious gaps in Indian technology and science and in management studies. Could there be an Indian Institute for Classical Studies that would help rescue, bring this body of knowledge back from the brink of disappearance, very possibly? I think there are also ways that everyday people can respond. And it's in the context of everyday people, of course they're not, in a sense, everyday people, that I want to talk briefly about the initiative of the Murthy family of Bangalore to provide funding for a new initiative called the Murthy Classical Library of India. This book series, which Namita just mentioned to you, aims to honor the big tent of Indian classical literature. We will be publishing books with the original script text on one side, English translation on the other, notes at the bottom of the page, and explanations at the back of the book in every major classical language, from Bangla to Kannada to Persian to Sanskrit to Urdu. Since the endowment was put in place in 2010, we've signed 21 authors for 32 volumes in 9 different languages. We will be publishing the first English translation of the Akbarnama, done by Wheeler Thaxton. We will be publishing Chris Shackle's Bulle Shah, Kalidas's Raghuvansha, a new, fabulous new edition by Dominic Goodall, Harunaga Isaacson, Krabha Desho. William Radici's Bharat Chandra's Anunda Mangal will be published. Shamsur Rahman Faruqi's Ghazals of Mir, and so on. It's going to be a marvelous and, I hope, transformative literary initiative. And I have to tell you, my hope, my little dream, that 100 years from now, we will have 500 books in the Murthy Classical Library. We will have an Indian edition in paperback and hardback, and that when you go to a railway kiosk 100 years from now, instead of seeing what will then be the Shobha Days and the Harvard Business Reviews and the Cine Blitz, you will see the Murthy Classical Library of India. And I think then people will really understand, with this I'll close, people will really begin to understand the force of this lovely old Sanskrit shloka, which I must read to you, and in a sense it is it could be the keynote of this goshti, this fabulous goshti that we have here. Kam prachamaha suraswarge nivasanti vayam bhuvi kim va kavyarasah swadu kim va swadiyasi sudha. Whom are we going to ask? The gods live in heaven, and we live here on earth. What's more beautiful, the taste of poetry or the elixir of immortality? Thank you very much. Let me just remind you before leaving that we do have two Murti Classical Library of India events today at 5 o'clock. We have a session on Bulle Shah with some fabulous performers and a wonderful presentation by Christopher Shackle in absentia. And then tomorrow at 3:30, we will have a session with Philip Lutgendorf and others on the Ramayana. So please do join us. Thank you.
So that concludes our opening session. Just to remind you all, right now we have Alex Bellos at the Economist Darbar Hall. We have Gulzar and Pavan Verma at the Merrill Lynch Mughal Tent. We have Geeta Hariharan and Manju Kapoor at the Kingfisher Baithak. And we have Orhan Pamuk in conversation with Chandrahas Chaudhary here, which will start exactly in 3 minutes. Thank you all very much. And please do register yourselves on your way out. Thank you. In case anyone finds a brown diary